Chapter 33. Sydney, Australia. Dripping water running down my neck. I had put all my beta interferon needles in a box above my head, and it was full of ice that was obviously melting. The cold chill reminded me of the needles being pushed into me. A reminder that I am sick. The 24 hours travelling seemed to last forever, and my friend Leanne and I spent the majority of time watching films or sleeping. Thankfully, there were no kids screaming or running up and down the aisles. Thankfully, I could sit and think about life and all of its possibilities. I was flying to Sydney, the place that the Olympic Games had been held many months before, the same games I should have been swimming in. I could go and visit the main sites or see the pool I could have swam in. I had pictured coming here to swim at the Olympics in the year 2000, but the circumstances were so incredibly different now. My parents had wanted to help me by buying me tickets to go see my brother Paul, who was now living and working in Sydney, Australia. Leanne had also wanted to visit Australia, and so she would come with me. We had been so excited about seeing all the sights, such as the Opera House, and enjoying the sun and the heat. We had been discussing everything we had wanted to see. We were very, very excited when we packed our bags, and even more so when we arrived at the airport, ready for our flight. The flight was supposed to take the full 24 hours, with one fueling stop after 20 hours of flying. I love flying, so the length of time didn't worry me at all, and it was only when the ice was dripping on my neck and the airplane was too cold and the films were boring that I realised how long 24 hours actually was. Paul met us at the airport and helped collect our bags before we got into a taxi. Paul lived on Manly Island, so we had to catch a boat to go over to the island, and then had to walk to Paul's flat. Unfortunately, Paul had chosen a flat which was situated almost at the top of a hill, and dragging suitcases up this hill was harder than anticipated. We unpacked our bags and rested with a big cup of tea before we started chatting about the things we could and would do. See the sights in Australia, see the Sydney Opera House, go shopping in Sydney, see the Sydney Harbour Bridge, hopefully see some koalas. Australia was a whole new world, and I expected it to be a wonderful adventure for us. Paul introduced Leanne and me to his friends and told us how to get everywhere. The next day, Paul had to go to work, so Leanne and I decided to hit the shops. To get to the shops, we had to catch the boat to get to the mainland, and then had to walk a short distance to catch another boat that took us to the main part of Sydney. This was all very exciting. We paid the money and jumped aboard, seeing the sights and hearing the sounds of Manly Island. What a great way to get to Sydney, and how exciting. Unfortunately, almost straight away I struggled to walk any distance. I was very angry that I could not be the same as any other tourist. My MS was completely in charge of this trip, but Leanne was very patient with me. We had to endure many breaks whilst my legs decided whether or not they were going to move. I kept the optimistic smile on my face with the desire inside to just break down and cry. Keep moving, legs, keep moving. But no, they eventually stopped fully, and we had to call the taxi to help us. When we got back to Paul's flat, I realised something else very important. I had left the VAL adapters at home. The VAL adapters helped to make up the injection. This meant that I couldn't have an injection whilst in Sydney. What a stupid mistake to make. How depressing. In the end, my mum organised to fly the injection parts over for me. I can breathe again. The parts were sent and everything was sorted, but I still struggle with walking, and we spent so much time resting that we didn't get around to seeing any of the sights we had originally planned to see. Sydney will always be a place of unease for me, personally. Nothing good has happened for me there. I wish it had all been different. While in Australia, it rained often, and a nasty car driver hit a puddle covering me and Leanne in dirty water. I was furious, but there was nothing we could do about it. I was so stressed with the MS being in charge, and me and my good friend just trying to cope with the disasters every day, that we were soon wishing the time away and only wanted to go home. I told my mum that we had had enough and that the MS was winning this fight. My mum, in her loving way, arranged for her home insurance to pay for me to come home early. I was crying non-stop and felt like such a failure and such a mistake. I had let Leanne, my mum, and Paul down as well as myself. I felt like a miserable failure. I was so useless.